thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take
Good afternoon, ladies and
away.
gentlemen. Welcome to Central Valley Talk. My name is Ray Johns. I'm your host, and the name of my show is Voices Not Yet Heard. I apologize for last week not being here. I wanted to talk about that awful tragedy that happened here in Fresno. And Central Valley Talk wishes to express our prayers and sympathy, and our prayers go out to the victims of that awful, awful thing done by a very, very bad person. And I want to read you a couple of things, and then I want to elaborate on that just a bit here. And number one is, it is not our differences that divides us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. That was said by Audre Lorde. Now, got another one here. It says, our true nationality is mankind. H.G. Williams. I love that. Men build too many walls and not enough bridges. Joseph Newton. I saved this last one on purpose because of the name. Okay, that idiot that did all those awful things happened to call himself Muhammad. He does not fit in the same league with this gentleman, and you'll see why. Hating people because of their color is wrong, and it doesn't matter which color does the hating. It's still wrong. Muhammad Ali. Pretty profound, huh? I must say that, like the rest of you, I was shocked. Anytime you stand up and you say, I want to kill people just because they're different from you, just because this man made the statement, I want to kill as many white men as I can. I was listening to the Trevor Carey show yesterday as I drove from my business, my mobile home business, and there were several people that called in. They talked about, they leaned toward leniency for this man because he has a mental problem. I don't care if he has a mental problem. I don't care. Anyone who kills somebody, and we've been getting away with that in this society, you stick them in an institution for a few years and you let them out. Look at Hinckley. He tried to assassinate the greatest president in my lifetime, Ronald Reagan, back in 1981. That's 36 years ago. He has just been released from prison. He's living with his mother with an ankle bracelet in a gated community, probably walking over to McDonald's every day getting a Big Mac. My opinion is, these people should be eliminated. They don't change. They never change. And they get out and they do the same thing. And we pay for it. We've paid for over $500,000 for Hinckley over the past 36 years. And who's to say that this idiot that did this last week won't be out in, say, 36 years and probably doing the same thing? Yes, he's a sick man. He's a sick man who should be eliminated. Now that I've said that, let's talk about something a lot more pleasant. Of course, Gary Miguel is with me today. And welcome back, Gary. Right. Gary's always has something profound to say, and today he hadn't told me what it is, but I look forward to it just like you do because it's always great. So, Gary, we're going to turn it over to you and let you say some things.
Well, first I want to say that trying to simplify a little bit, put some sense to what took place here in Fresno with that.
Good.
I mean, there's several things there that comes to mind real quick and very simple is that fact that was a hate crime.
Absolutely, it was a hate crime.
Well, two things got to happen, and I think there's enough people that are starting to see that to happen. And one of them is blacks have got to stop thinking that they're black and start thinking they're American.
Thank you very much. Well said.
And the other thing is the liberals,
the
Democrats, have got to stop pandering to the black people for their own benefit. They don't care about the black people. They just want to get elected.
It's enabling for one thing, and that's what they do.
And they pander.
Yeah.
And that's what's all. And blacks are doing the same thing that are getting into politics. Mm-hmm. They're pandering as much as the white politicians.
Oh yeah, it goes
guilty,
across both races. Sure it does.
So why not just sit back a little bit and says, well, wait a minute, why don't we just not even bother to look at any of that but the fact that we're Americans?
Isn't it sad that it breeds these cowards? I call this man a coward.
Yeah.
Anyone can pick up a .357 and walk out in the crowd and shoot a bunch of people. But yet, when he was confronted the police, he laid down and gave up. Okay, if he was as bad as he thought he did, why didn't he shoot it out with the police? I wish he had.
I wish he had, too.
I wish he had. We would have eliminated him.
Right.
We're going to end up paying $1 million
yeah.
for this idiot to be in some institution that they're trying to rehabilitate, which is an impossibility. I'm tired of this.
The thing is that the liberals continue to victimize people, and nobody wants to be a victim. So indirectly or subconsciously, if I keep getting told I'm a victim and I start to believe in it,
of course
then
do.
I'm going to act like
Yeah.
I've been a victim. So
Perfect,
I'm going to
Gary.
take it out on somebody that I consider victimizing me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
You know, Martin Luther King said way back in 1963 or 64, he said, black people have got to quit blaming white people for their dilemma and go out and do something. This idiot said the other day, white people are keeping black people down. Well, I'm not down. I'm successful. I got out. I got a job. I went to college. I did everything that I was supposed to be, and I'm not a victim of anything. You know.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he's down because he put himself down.
Exactly.
It had nothing to do with color he was.
No, it didn't. He put himself down. If you don't believe in yourself, then guess what? You're not going to go too far.
In fact, what he's doing is he's just using the fact he was black as an excuse.
Of course it's an excuse.
I don't care what color he was.
I am
do you?
so tired of that, Gary,
Yeah.
in this country. I am so tired of that. It's gone on long enough. It's gone on
Yeah.
forever. Let's stop it. Let's stand up like men and be men.
I think
that's the
there's a-
problem. We don't have enough men in this country.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. And I think that there is a change, although it's always a small. You see it coming out. People like Sheriff Clark.
Absolutely.
You know,
Great.
and
Perfect
I've
example.
never read a thing yet about that man that hasn't been admirable.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then you go and
He tells it like it is, too.
Yeah,
That's what I
right.
love about him.
And you notice even like Trump, he doesn't see any colors, does he?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you who did. Obama.
Of course
Who
he
was
did.
colored.
Yeah. Of course
Now, does
he
that
did.
make sense?
Of course he did.
He was a pander to
Well, of course he did, and he perpetuated a lot of this
Of
crap
course.
that's going on right
Exactly.
now. You invite
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter
What better
was-
opportunity did he
to the
have?
White House. This is an organization
Yeah.
was born out of a falsehood. It was a lie, and yet he invited them there. Soros gave them $100,000 to further their cause. You know, if they want to further their cause, why don't they step up to the plate and acknowledge how wrong it was what happened here in Fresno last week? Why don't you step up to the plate? I dare you. Step up to the plate and apologize for an idiot that did something that he shouldn't have done.
Well, what better opportunity? Who could ask for anything better than have the President of the United States in a position where he could have solved this issue that we're talking about? No, he created a bigger division.
And it, just like he did with it, like you and I've said before on this show, it was an inept, do-nothing administration, and
Yeah.
that's why we're in the situation. You know, Donald Trump inherited something that's just. And by the way, today is his 99th day. Tomorrow is his 100th day. His approval rating is great. He has done more for this country than Barack Obama did in 8 years.
Yeah.
More for this country in
Well,
99 days, ladies and gentlemen.
If you want to think of Obama having a plus sign instead of a minus sign, but put it where it is, I mean anybody would have done more than Obama in that
Yeah.
because he went the other way. He tore the country apart in a lot
And
of
was
ways.
going to hand it to Hillary Clinton, who was going to lead us right into communism.
Which takes me into the subject.
Good. We're going to hear this.
I read that this week, Ray, and I thought I understood it, but I didn't understand it as much as what I found out. Is that we have we have Congress and we have the Senate, and these are senators and congressmen, and we sit here and see all the signs and the speeches, and we go through all this, and we elect these people to, we think, write bills and legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we've all been taught, and that's what we
That's
think.
what we think, and they're there to represent us wherever our communities are. Well, come to find out, there hasn't been a congressman or a senator write a bill in at least the last 10 years and maybe more.
Are you kidding me?
They don't write the bills. They
Well,
don't
explain
write
that
the
to us,
legislation.
Gary,
So
because-
So I'm going to explain it this way. First, I'm going to go because we get into politics is kind of confusing.
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to try to break it down to where we
Okay.
can understand
Okay.
it. But I'm just going to put it this way: we have what would be I'm going to call it the uniparty Doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republicans.
Excuse me.
They're the same. Some people call them the establishment elite. Somebody calls them the deep state. Okay, who are these people? Well, these are the people, and they're Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. Liberal, conservative, doesn't matter. But they have one thing in common: is they are the ones that actually run the United States.
Okay.
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 Now we think it's our Congress, we think it's our Senate, and we think it's our president. And
This is a small group of people, I take it, right?
well, it probably controls trillions of dollars.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
And we're talking about it can include, as an example, like there's special interest groups, like for instance, all the global warming people.
Yeah.
And then you have the corporation. You have Wall Street.
You have the EPA. You have
Then,
yeah.
and then you also have well, we mentioned the environmentalists, but we have a group of people who are represented. For instance, big corporations like insurance companies. Okay, is a big one, and also the banking, big one. And so when we start and we go into, like, for instance, the corporate, like General Motors and so forth.
Major.
The big one. So the owners of these, that makes up this group. Okay, and so who does in fact write the law? You're thinking it's your congressman sitting there coming up with this law. No. Who writes it is the people that are this, and we'll pick up on one, we'll just say this insurance company.
Okay.
Or the insurance companies. They hire people, lawyers and so forth. They're the ones that actually write the law. Okay, now, they write it obviously to their benefit.
Of course they do.
Okay? Now, where does that go? That goes to the lobbyist. Who the lobbyists are hired by these people. And where does the lobbyist function? I thought maybe the lobbyists are the ones that wrote the bills and all that. No, they don't write them either. They're the salesmen that go sell it to the congressman.
Oh my gosh, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm going to put it a little plainer. Let's take like that T-shirt. If you think of it this way, you have that T-shirt on. That was manufactured somewhere.
Yes, it was.
It was made a T-shirt. That manufacturer of that T-shirt obviously needed to sell his item. He sells it to the wholesaler. The wholesaler in turn sells it to the retailer, and the retailer then that's us.
Sells
right?
it to me, yeah.
Okay, so let's track the same thing so we can keep it simple.
Okay.
So now we have the uniparty, or the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, the ones that actually do the bill writing. They're the manufacturer.
Okay.
They're the manufacturer of the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Now they have the T-shirt. They need that T-shirt sold, so they go to the wholesaler. Well, who's the wholesaler? Well, the wholesaler is the lobbyist. So what does the lobbyist do? The lobbyist turns around and sells the congressman. Some of them were former congressmen themselves and senators,
yeah, I
right?
can imagine.
So that's their job. Their job is selling the bill that was written way back to the guy that made the T-shirt. So you got the picture. It's pretty simple.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right. So now when you think about that, now let's go into the selling act of the Congress and senators. Roughly 50% of their time is spent getting reelected.
Absolutely, it
Okay.
is.
Now let's just go back to 1996.
Okay.
And roughly 113,000 was being spent by lobbyists or by these companies for each congressman.
Oh my goodness.
So in other words,
That's an absolute fortune.
well, 113,000 being spent the year on that particular congressman.
Yeah.
It was the average, right? Now today, the same number of Congress, same number of senators, what are they paying now, or what is it costing now? $5.8 million per congressman.
And I thought the other figure was astronomical. Oh my goodness, Gary. It's unreal.
Isn't it?
Unbelievable.
So what do these guys get? I mean, if you're a congressman, your job is to get reelected,
Sure.
You don't write any legislation. That's all. You just get what they hand you, and
Yeah.
they say, Ray, now you go sell this. But you're the congressman, but let's say I'm the lobbyist. They hand it to me and says, go sell Ray this. So I go to Ray and I say, Ray, what's it going to take you to go along and vote for this? And you say, well, I kind of don't. Well, I just sort of explain this and explain that. But what I really do is I sit there, Ray, how you and your wife or your whatever you want to go to. We got box seats at the ball game. And it goes on.
Oh, of course it
free
does.
flights, free
Yeah.
vacations,
Yeah.
free all that. Plus, well, my God, I think you got a daughter who wants to go to school. How about we take care of her scholarship? In fact, you have a foundation. Oh yeah, I got a foundation. I mean, it's a foundation to help this and that.
Supposedly it's charity.
It's
yeah,
a charity.
But it's not.
Well, why don't I just write you a check for $1 million and put in that foundation?
Of course, that's how it works.
And
It's beautiful.
And what do? You do like Clinton's. Hillary's not the only one with foundation.
No, she's not.
She just happens to have one of the biggest and
ones.
crookedest.
You're right, though. Absolutely.
So there's okay. So let's put it this way: we can argue that or discuss that all we want. But what we do know is there's 5.8 million a year going to one congressman, on average. So you take and figure out where's that money going? It's going in these people's pocket.
Unbelievable.
Okay, so
Unreal.
that explains why Trump cannot get the Congress to repeal the Obama. They're not going to. They don't want to.
And they hit him at every single angle, and it's those people that are doing it. Every
Because they're
single
being
angle.
paid. They're being paid not to.
Yeah.
So they're not going to come up with anything to pass
No.
that. The border, the globalists, back to
I'm
the
so glad
uniparty.
you brought this up. Most people don't know this.
Well,
This
like
is-
the
yeah.
globalists is an example.
Yeah.
Trump's trying to get that wall. Everybody in the country thinks that's a good idea, except
The liberals. Yeah.
well, it's the liberals, but it's the people that are the globalists that are profiting for not having the wall.
Yeah.
They don't care about drugs coming into this country. They don't care about gangs coming in this country. They don't care about that because that's not where they live. I mean, they live completely isolated
Oh,
from
course
any
they
of that.
do. Of course they're the elitists. Yeah.
That's why they're the elitists, right? So what happens is they profit by there not being a wall, and strict.
Yeah.
Everybody come in, okay? So that's a big one. The Obamacare is a big one. You think the insurance companies want? No, they want it like it is.
Of course they do. They're the ones that
'Cause they
benefit and have
profit
been
from it.
benefited. Certainly.
Right. And then what else is he trying to get stopped there? What on his platform he's got the wall is a biggie, and then the Obamacare
they're the two
and the
big
tax reform.
Yeah, tax reform
They-
right now.
I mean, come on, doesn't everybody want to pay less taxes?
Yeah. And his tax bill, I don't know if you saw Herb Cain on Hannity the other night. I think it was Tuesday
I
night or
don't.
something. And Herb Cain, of course, has always been for the flat tax. I like Herb Cain. And he said Donald Trump's tax bill is going to benefit the middle class. And
Yeah.
it will. That's the
Oh, everybody
that's all-
says that.
Yeah, that's a whole key thing. And if you benefit and build the middle class, everyone's going to prosper. We know that. We've known that for years.
How many in Congress and how many in the Senate have come up with a bill to pass? Zero.
Zero.
Both Republican and Democrat.
Yeah.
And now you go back and check some of the things that have happened, and you wonder, like Obama, do you realize that Obama, anything he wanted to spend money on, rubber stamp, Congress and Senate. Why?
That's why we have a $19 trillion deficit in this
Exactly.
country right now.
Now, the Republicans, they could have stopped it. They didn't stop it. Or they could have held it back or
Yeah.
something. But now they're dragging their feet on Trump. He doesn't even have he can't even get his people to prove that he needs to work. That's like you having pizzas out there to pick, and somebody saying, "No, you can't have anyone out there
Yeah.
to pick it." Well, they said
It's
out
the
there.
same thing. You're
Same
right.
thing.
That's a good analogy.
And he's stopping him. See, so these people are not your friend, and these congressmen and senators that we have in there today. Believe me, we'd be better off if there was some way you just wipe the whole bunch out and come in with a fresh bunch and do away with the lobbyists.
Exactly.
And then now start what this thing was all designed to be, which is now you're starting to represent who? The American people.
That's why Donald Trump's having such a hard time.
Exactly, and he's
difficult time.
Yeah, and you take
aside from what he inherited.
Well, I mean, it's a mess, like he said. But you take, like, for instance, the media, which is owned by that uniparty bunch.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so what are they going to do? They just say what they're told to do, and if you don't, you get fired.
Yeah.
So you have the media against Donald Trump, and they're fighting him on the most ridiculous. I watch those press briefings. My God, that's a joke.
Oh, sure it is.
But the whole point is that we have to understand is that the congressman and the senator from your district, my district, they are there, and they are there at the bidding of the special interest, which includes anything.
You just made me realize something else too, Gary. Great point. That's why they're going after the conservative media now. Like, for instance, Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and those people, because these people happen to tell the truth.
Right.
And they can't handle it.
No.
They cannot handle it.
That's
Like
exactly
you said,
right.
It's detrimental to them for the truth to come out.
Well, look at the lies that MSN and CNN and those all put. How come they're not being hassled?
Because they've been being paid, because they're part of the problem.
They are the problem.
Problem, yeah.
And they are being supported by that uniparty, both Democrat and Republicans, that are the elitists that have been ripping the American public off for at least 40, 50, 60 years. Now,
I'm so glad you brought that
I'll
up.
talk about someday about how I see it in just one area alone, as far as the pensions we talked about it earlier. It's been about 6 months ago, but I think I'll bring it up again sometime, where we go in depth as to how the American public, the retirees in this country, have been ripped off. And I always use the term 93%. Who got the other 90? Because people say, "Oh, I'm get 7%." I get.
I love this analogy.
So then I ask myself, "Well, who got the other 93%?" Well, what 93%? It's there.
Oh yeah, it
every
is.
year. And somebody
I
got
love it. Gary, we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back. I want to touch a little bit, and I know Gary does too, on Kim Jong-un, that little short fat guy that wears a black coat that has a terrible haircut. We're going to talk about him when we come back a little bit. And I've done a little due diligence on Korea, and I came up with some pretty interesting things. We're going to talk about that, and Gary's got some thoughts on that, and we'll be back in, let's say, 2 and 2. I want to talk a little bit, and Gary does too, about Kim Jong-un. Now, I thought this was hilarious, and I can't remember who said it. I can't remember if it was Rex Tillerson or Mad Dog Mattis. They asked him the question last week, and I heard it on the radio, so I couldn't, if I'd been watching on TV, I would know who did it. But anyway, they asked him about Korea, and Korea versus the United States, and he said it's like bringing a Chihuahua to challenge a Mastiff, which I just loved. I mean, I love our men, our generals now, because they, and I know that Korea is a threat, and I know our biggest concern is our allies in Japan and our allies in South Korea, but it's I did a little research, and I found out something very interesting. Everyone thinks the Korean War in 1950 was our first encounter with Korea. It wasn't. In 1866, and remember that year, we were still reeling from the effects of the Civil War, which took more people than all the wars that we fought combined. I think it was like 625,000 people died in the Civil War. Well, anyway, we were still reeling from that, and what was called a merchant ship sailed in up the Yellow River to a place called Ganghwa, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. And it was headed by a young Custer-type captain who they say was really not there to do. They were there to trade, supposedly, and make peace and get some kind of alliance going with Korea. Well, he was told to stop at one point, and he did for a while, and then he continued, and it was believed that he was probably in search of some type of treasure. There were some artifacts, some great religious artifacts that were worth a fortune. However, he was on a merchant ship that was armed with guns. Well, he stopped at one place, and I guess they bogged down or something, and he fired into a village and killed several people. This was in 1866. Well, the people retaliated. They came out with what they call fire boats, because the boats, of course, were wooden, and they set the boats on fire. The people on the ship swam to shore, and they were all killed. Well, of course, everybody in this country was up in arms, and they sent several different boats to try to find out what was going on, because that was, of course, the mode of travel at the time. And they were all turned back because of weather. Finally, in 1871, they sent a barrage, 5 ships, 500 sailors, 100 Marines. And they sailed up, and they stopped, and they were met by friendly Koreans, and were asked what they wanted, and they tried to explain. And the Koreans said they didn't want to do any trading. Everything kind of got out of hand, and they fired on the American ships. Well, the captain at the time gave them 10 days to apologize. They did not do that, and so they attacked the village, and the result was disastrous for the Koreans. Apparently, there were 300 so Koreans killed and 3 Americans. So trade ceased between our country and Korea for several years, and I think it was Japan that finally negotiated a treatment, and that was some 5, 10, maybe 20 years later. But I wanted you to know that. I did some due diligence and found that out, and found that was really interesting. Korean War was not our first encounter with them, you know.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I did due diligence and found that out, and found it was pretty interesting.
Well, they're right on the point of the knife now, aren't they? Absolutely,
yeah. Gary, they are. And you know, I can't help but think, and in doing due diligence, you know, and the culprit in this, to me, it's not Russia. The culprit is Iran. Iran funds Syria. I know that as far as Korea goes, they get 80% of their funding from China. You know, and China is hopefully now, they sent the troops, as you pointed out, very good point, to guard the border. You know, they turned back the coal ships. So they're realizing, you know, bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, China is not going to give up what they've got with us, which is trade for that little piss-ass country. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do that, you know. And so it all comes down to that,
well,
as far as I'm concerned.
The strategy on this has been in the works now for even before Trump
several presidents have failed to deal with Korea.
Well, and the thing I'm talking about recent, it has never come to a head. We're still at war with Korea. There's never. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, it was never. That's exactly the way it ended up, a ceasefire.
So Trump's been laying the groundwork for a long time, and of course Iran falls into that. But if you see what he was trying to do and what he's been able to do, and there's a reason for all that, including the bombing like in Afghanistan and Syria. Yeah. It all gets related. Number one, it brought people's attention to the fact that, let's face it, there is just one leader in this world, and that's the United States.
You done right. That's us.
You know, in case you had a doubt.
Yeah. Right? You shouldn't have one now.
And so what was necessary is to get China in on this. That's the reason why, if you go back and see all the countries from Southeast Asia and Korea, South Korea, and so forth, you know, those people have all been to the White House. I've been over since Trump's been elected.
Taiwan's a perfect example.
You know, they've come over, okay? And that was laying the groundwork, because the ultimate thing that Trump's trying to do, if it works, and the key to it, is to get China to solve the issue economically with North Korea.
That's what he said all the time. Yeah.
But see, now the Chinese guy, the premier, he's got the rest of Asia all around him. And so how do you make this look like, because Trump doesn't care about this part I'm about to say, how do we make this thing look like it was China that solved it? The Chinese premier saves face.
Great point.
And gets the credit.
Yeah.
Because what we don't want to have happen is we don't want to be the one that does solve it and isolate ourselves in that sense to where we're the ones that solved it. Well, that and China has been helping. We don't want it to look like that the Americans have leveraged the Chinese to solve it.
Yeah.
We don't want it to look like we're leveraging them.
Yeah.
We want them to solve it and get credit for it.
Which is what he said
and
all
we're
the
going
time.
to support
he's relying on China to do, and
Right.
he did go as far as to say, if you can't do it, we'll take care of it.
Well, he has to say that,
Yeah.
and the Chinese premier he wants it solved.
He does.
You know,
it's for his benefit.
But
It's for his
put
great
yourself
benefit.
in his shoes. I mean, he wants it solved. At the same time, he has a little different issue there in the sense that he's surrounded by other Asian
nations.
nations that they want it solved. But at the same time, how came out today just before I came here? T-Rex he goes before the United Nations and he says, okay, all you countries doing business with Korea, North Korea, have got to stop. You got to stop doing business with them. And he says, he basically laid out an ultimatum to him. And he's telling the UN to solve that.
Yeah.
And those nations that belong to the UN that are doing business with North Korea have been instructed as of today to cease.
Good point. I wish I had seen that. I'll hear about it.
Yeah, you'll hear about it. And so he was pretty tough on that. And
Good.
also, the UN, which we've seen for years and years, do they do anything or do they not? Are they,
You know, Gary, I remember when they were formed back in 1919, they were the League of Nations.
Yeah.
And I thought, in history, you and I both read, they did a lot of good. When they became the United Nations, it's like they became a do-nothing organization.
Well,
for the most part.
that's right. And they became a world, that's back to the globalists again. They're always for the United Nations.
Yeah.
Because they want it under one world
Absolutely.
army.
Yeah.
Period, right?
Yeah.
And then the United Nations then tells you what to do. Because we have to do stuff here.
They're the lobbyists, aren't they?
Yeah, they'd be like the lobbyist, okay, and the enforcer on top of that. Okay, so what Trump's looking at, basically, let's see if we can break it down. What basically they're saying is, okay, UN, solve that Korea problem along with the Chinese, and we'll stand behind there with military, solve it.
Yeah.
See if you're worth what you're supposed to be worth.
Exactly.
And
I'm
do
so
what you're
glad
supposed to do.
He did that. We
Okay.
got the right man.
And turn around, because then the next level is, you've never done anything before, you didn't do anything now, we don't need the UN, period.
Exactly.
And that dissolves the UN.
Yeah.
So it's not only that little fat kid that's
With
has
a bad haircut.
with
Yeah.
a bad haircut, it could be seeing the end.
Yeah.
The end is near.
Oh,
so
yeah.
does the UN.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you,
He's not dumb as he looks, is he?
and you look at the UN, and can you imagine the graph that goes on with that? These countries paying off this guy. I mean, it just, and they're not even paying their bills. And that's another thing Trump told them. It says, you guys pay up. You want to be a member of the club,
I
pay
just
up.
read that. Yeah.
Pay your dues.
In several countries, he said that too,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
should. We should not have to foot the bill for all these countries.
Well, why should we?
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. We've been doing it for years.
especially something that is not in our best interest.
Exactly.
Why are we
Still-
paying for
why are we
something
still
that's not
paying?
in our best interest? You know. So
Yes, I'm glad we
I
got
think
that.
I think what Trump did is put that UN in a situation where either you do or you don't.
Yeah.
Or either you do or die.
Yeah, they have no choice.
They have no choice now. And there's some others that have no choice along the line. Now, he's been successful in basically isolating Putin, Turkey, and Iran, and Syria. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, Putin's sitting there saying, "Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if this is working to my advantage after all." So he's not saying a whole lot.
No,
about
he's
it.
not. He's real quiet.
Yeah.
You're right.
And all of a sudden, he gets to realize, you know what? That little fat kid's missiles are closer to me than they are to the U.S. You know.
They're much closer. in
So
fact.
so he wants it solved. Putin does. And what's interesting, though, is from the U.S. standpoint, in Trump's standpoint, he knowing those people over there have to save face, including Putin with his people.
Of course they do.
What they've seen how powerful the U.S. is now, and they're saying, "Wait a minute, there's a new sheriff in
That's
town."
right.
But what Trump is basically saying now, wait a minute, you got your own sheriff. You just solve what needs to be solved, and I guarantee you, if it does get solved, by
And that's what they
diplomats.
want to do. That's what Trump wants
Well,
to
that's
do.
what I think any thinking person does.
Yeah.
And then I guarantee you, Trump will praise the people that were involved, especially the Chinese premier, and he'll come out of that very favorable in terms of all that whole region of the.
You said something
deal.
very profound a couple of weeks ago, and you said Trump is doing something that no president has even come close to doing. He's uniting the Middle East. I mean, we've got Egypt, we've got Jordan, we've got all these Middle Eastern companies that are coming together, countries that are coming together to back us in all this.
Right.
You know, it's the first time in history these countries are coming together as allies to us. You know,
Right. So what happens is the Middle East issue somehow gets solved, or at least at a level to where it's acceptable. The Korean issue gets solved at least at a level that is acceptable. And in the case of Korea, it could end up being a military action. But
Which won't last too long.
which will not last too long, but also it will. Well, the Koreans aren't. That North Korea isn't going to be backed by very many people.
See, that's
if
it.
any, you know.
That's it right there.
In fact, they were told today that, listen, don't count on any of these people trading with you anymore. He wants to put an embargo that way.
That was a major thing when the president of China turned around those coal ships, wasn't it? Sent
Well,
them back to North Korea.
that was a big signal.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
signal.
And also, he's putting those 150,000 troops along.
Border?
Here's what China see happen.
They don't want those refugees coming into their country.
Exactly. That's what the troops are there for.
Yeah.
And so he does not want that to happen. And it doesn't have to happen, you know. And it gets down to the common sense part, but I don't know how much we could rely on that all the time. Sometimes it takes force, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it does.
And the thing...
Could he be that? Could Kim Jong-un be that stupid to think that you know, I think, like I said, I think he's a lot smarter than he looks. You know, he talks a lot, he boasts a lot, but I think it goes back to you saying saving face.
Yeah. Well, that, plus, my gosh, he's got those people believing some weird stuff, you know.
Yes, he does. All that propaganda.
I don't think he's irrational, but I think he's he was raised a certain way, and that's all he knows, you know. And then he's coming from a beat of a different drummer, you know. And but thing you have to look at some of this stuff that's that we have to pay attention to and constantly on guard. And it was an eye opener for me, as well. I'm sure it was for you, to realize that, wait a minute, our congressmen and senators do not represent us.
It is an eye opener.
That is an eye opener.
It is indeed an eye opener.
And I'll tell you, they may have interest, but they can't afford it.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford to lose what they're getting for not representing us.
Absolutely.
They're representing 100%. And that shocked me when I found out that they haven't written legislation that has come out of
that amazes
either
me.
Congress
I
or
did
Senate
not know that.
in the last 10, 20 years.
I didn't know that, Gary.
I didn't
that
either.
was an eye-opener for me.
I didn't either. And the other thing we have to think about, getting back to that incident here in Fresno, ISIS, Mohammed or whatever.
Oh, the idiot, yeah.
Right. Okay, that's an influence of he admitted he's a ISIS deal, right?
Oh, yeah.
Think about this, Ray. We had World War II and we had World War I, but did we ever have the Japanese invade our country?
No.
Did we ever have the Germans invade our country?
No one's ever invaded this country.
Except one. And we asked them to. And that's ISIS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Opened up the borders.
Sure.
Took in all these refugees. What do you think's in the middle of all that?
That's what I don't understand. I have never understood it, Gary. Don't they realize what's going to happen? It's pretty plain.
It's not immigration, it's invasion.
Exactly.
There's a big difference between immigration and invasion.
Yeah.
You know, so many people come over here as immigrants, and for the chance to better themselves, you know. But they came in here and assimilated. They became Americans. They kept their culture and traditions and so forth, and they alongside of everyone.
Sure,
right?
they did. It's
not these guys. They come in here to invade.
The Irish, the Italians, they come in here, and they expect us as Americans to adopt to their way of life. How ridiculous is that?
And for us to even think that we would put up with that, it blows me away.
Yes.
Why?
Thank goodness for Donald Trump.
You know, if we go back to when we were in school, if somebody would have told you what we're experiencing today, you wouldn't have believed it.
No, of course you wouldn't.
I mean, what do you mean? One thing, I mean, you come in here, everybody was anxious to come here. I remember immigrants coming from, coming from other foreign countries. And couldn't speak the language, but boy, they were quick to assimilate. You know.
Very
but
quick.
Then you turn around, and you have a country that is being invaded, and we don't do anything about it. And there's a reason, and I tell you what, it really starts to gripe you when you begin to realize that uniparty or that interest in them, there is not one smidgen of anything that you think is important or value or think so forth, that they're totally out of that. All right, give you an example. Hillary Clinton received 90% of the vote.
Popular vote we're talking about, right? Okay.
90%.
Oh, well, look at Washington, D.C. I mean, is
well, the fact that they voted for it tells me that they're guilty.
Well, sure. Absolutely, Gary.
Anybody that voted for Hillary is guilty. Of what? Of all the things that we're talking about.
Every one of them.
They're all guilty of subversion of what the United States is supposed to be all about, which is the pursuit of happiness for all people.
Yeah.
And
freedom. We talked about that.
And freedom.
Yeah. Freedom in the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly. And when you have people that are preaching against it, indoctrinating in our schools, propaganda through our media. I mean, it's a wonder we're still standing.
Look what these, Donald Trump has such an uphill climb, and he'll get there.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, he'll get there. He's already climbing. But he has such and what most people would say an insurmountable climb. But he's getting there because he's getting hit by every one of these liberal idiots that are out there.
And that includes
every
Republicans.
single face. Yeah, it does include it.
In fact, I blame the Republican Congress and Senate. I put more blame on them than I do the Democrats by far, simply because they have the numbers to do something about
Absolutely they do.
And they can't do it.
See, and what was a surprise to me, I thought, we have all three branches of the government.
Right.
Why is this happening? It's happening because, like you said, the Republicans, there are certain Republicans in this country that are sabotaging this whole thing because they're part of that elitist group.
Of course they are. And there's 30 to 50% of them, not 30 to 50%, I meant 30 to 50 Republicans that are that never Trump outfit. Now, what's that all about?
Yeah.
I mean, you're guilty.
Sure they are.
But here's something I may not see it, but I'd love to see it. If in fact, it is a fact that the Congress no longer hasn't been writing bills for who knows when, somebody that has a special interest writes the bills. They don't even read it.
Yeah.
Okay, the lobbyists are the middleman that gets it done by, patting the nest of these congressmen and senators. And now they're owned, right? Nobody owns Trump. Nobody, okay? Now think about this. These people are all owned, okay? Now, if they're owned by who? They're not owned by me and you, or you and me.
No.
They're owned by the special
interest groups,
right.
Absolutely.
And so they're going to do what they're going to tell them to do, not what you and I tell them to do. It's just a waste of time to email them and call them on the phone,
Sure.
And so what I see happening, though, Trump is patient and he's waiting, and we talk about the draining of the swamp. Now, let's just think about that. If these people for that many years, which we just found out, are not doing anything that they're doing to representing the American people, they're doing writing bills, and everything is coming from who? 100% from special interests, which are not necessarily you and I, of course. We're not in part of that.
No.
We're not one of those banking conglomerates or Wall Street or the global warming outfit and all that environmental stuff. They all profit from that, but not you and I. We get hurt by it. Yes. Look at that. Go talk to the loggers in Oregon and Washington. Okay, so if that is the case, okay, now, and we've seen how crooked Hillary is, corrupt and with her foundation and all, using the government to pad in her deal, which Obama is right now at
$400,000 for a speech to Wall Street. And he stood on television. I'm glad you brought that up. That angers the hell out of me. And he stood on television and said, I'm not going to cater to those fat cats on Wall Street. Well, what's he doing? What a liar. What an incredible liar.
Well, I mean, he's as guilty as any scum criminal is. Well, then but here's the thing that I think, and I think there's so many of those congressmen, both Democrat and Republican, are just as crooked and corrupt as Obama and Hillary.
Of course there are.
So they're sitting back, and Trump just sits there and let them twist in the wind. So all of a sudden, some of these things that he's trying to get through doesn't happen, and he got the names. all of a sudden Session pays them a visit
Oh yeah.
with AG. Because there's some, you think that Hillary's the only one with the foundation? They all got foundations.
Sure
they all
do.
got
Sure they do.
some of the
Gary.
crooked stuff. Well, I just
Yeah.
seen they're popping some
Wouldn't
of
you
them.
like to know how much money total is in some of those foundations? It'd be phenomenal.
Well, it would be, but I'll tell you what else you could do is just take 5.8 million times the number of senators of 100
We have an inkling.
and 500. That tell you how much money's
Yeah,
going.
we have an inkling.
In fact, it's in the billions. I think it's 3 point some odd billion goes
Is that
every year.
right?
Yeah.
Incredible.
And that's just money, and that's taxpayers.
Oh, of
paying
course
for
it is.
this.
Of course it's taxpayer money.
And so,
You know, you look at these, and I keep, you and I have talked about this a lot, about all these idiots that are out there, and of course they're paid, and they're demonstrating, and they're trying to do everything they can to stop Trump. There's a let's impeach Donald Trump kind of thing. All this crap is going along. And I thought about something the other day. When I was in Fresno State, I was in a play. And I love William Shakespeare, and it's one of William Shakespeare's plays that you don't hear a lot about. You hear Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth. And it was called Much Ado About Nothing. You know, and that's what this reminds me of. Much Ado About Nothing, you know.
well, I tell you what's getting down to something, though. Those people, and they're charging them with felonies.
Good.
Now, we've had riots before. We seem
Mm-hmm.
to forget. But I was involved in the riots back in the 68, 69.
I remember those. Yeah.
Remember those Berkeley Watts and all
Sure.
that, right? And I was a pilot then, and I and another two people flying this thing, but I and another guy would fly the plane that would take the adjutant general around to these sites. And we were handed a top secret, because we all had top secret clearance, but we were having a dossier of top secret, and we're going to go to L.A. And so we're going around. Well, I got to get the background on some of that. What happened is they were being paid just like Soros is paying these
all
guys,
these other
right?
people, yeah.
But here's there are two things that started breaking that. One of them in particular was that these people, cops in the Army, remember that was called?
Oh, yeah.
Gather these
Several
people
occasions.
up, and they all go to jail. But the leader, he gets out.
Time again, you're right.
Who was paying the bail? You know where the money was coming from?
Where?
Red China through Cuba.
Oh, wait, I did hear that. I do remember
Yeah.
hearing that.
Yeah.
Red China through Cuba. Exactly.
And so now all of a sudden you're a young kid sitting there, snowflake, and you're sitting there, boy, you're all goddamn, you're anti this, anti that,
Oh,
boy,
yeah.
you're going to do this. And all of a sudden you're stuck in jail, and this guy got out, and you say, well, wait a minute,
Isn't he the leader?
you're one of the useful idiots.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry about
exactly,
that. And pretty
exactly.
soon, and then get hit with a felony. Now, can you imagine a parent of one of those students that you're sending and paying money to Berkeley? Of course, you're probably as liberal as they are, no doubt, but nevertheless, you're paying money. Your student gets out with a diploma and a felony on
his record.
On his record. Now, he goes out to apply for a job. What's he got on his record?
Felony.
Now, he's got to explain that one.
Yeah.
So what's happening is they're starting to nail in these guys with felonies.
Good.
They hit, I think there was 200 and some just like yesterday or the day before. So these people that are rioting are going to be charged with felonies.
Yeah.
And another thing, of course, this part, I don't know if I agree with that, but anyway, the bikers had said, look, we've had enough of the thugs, and we're going to not allow the thugs to take over and prevent us from having, in this country, free speech. And that's with their statement. Of course, you can imagine, although I could see where maybe that'd be pretty intimidating.
Oh, heck yeah. It would
But
be.
and that's true. We're talking about, and these are the people that are saying free speech, and they're the ones that are there stopping the,
Exactly.
preventing
Exactly.
it. So I think that what we have, it's going to be interesting down the pike on so many issues, But one of the things that is a neat deal is that M13 gang they're picking those guys
yes.
up right and left.
I love it. Yeah.
And it's kind of quiet, about it.
It's continuing.
But I
yeah.
check and see how. Oh man, they're getting a ton of those guys out of here.
Gary, and aren't you just, I know you are, aren't you just ecstatic that we have Donald Trump?
Oh, of
Thank
course.
goodness. This country would be in a shambles by now if he weren't
Oh,
where he's
absolutely.
at.
In fact, I mean, it would go down at such a steep
Well, you made it. You made a
decline.
great comparison the other day. Look what continues to happen in Venezuela right now.
Exactly. Look how short a time.
Yeah, very short time.
I mean,
they
that-
went from a prosperous country to a third world country like that.
Ray, I remember saying, well, I wonder when that forced labor comes up, because there's never been a communist country, right? September of last year, forced labor in Venezuela. Then after that, it's only a matter of time of what? Starvation.
Sure.
Then after that, it's only a matter of time and rioting. Then after that, people are getting killed.
Oh yeah. Total anarchy.
Yeah, total anarchy. And so, would we be facing something like that in a heartbeat?
It had
In a
Hillary
heartbeat.
Clinton been elected, we would have.
Ray, just cut off the EBT card for one day.
I love that analogy. You did that about 6 months ago on this show, and it was absolutely wonderful. I got so many compliments about that.
you want instant riot
Oh yeah, right now.
right now. Just go to all these grocery outlets and people with carts, and they're all standing there.
Yeah, and then it said reject it, restrict it. Oh yeah, you would have it would happen instantly.
I think the only thing that would be more damaging or I guess more catastrophic would be that little fat kid drop a bomb here. And,
Yeah, it'd be probably the only thing.
yeah,
Right.
but this would be nationwide.
Well, I see once again, ladies and gentlemen, and it always happens when Gary's here. We've just about run out of town, and please, we're going to be back next week. Gary, you're coming back, right?
Sure, I'll come back.
I
Yeah.
hope so. We need you. We need you. And every week we talk about this. There were a couple of more shootings of law enforcement officers, not in this area, but in the nation. And it doesn't matter where it happens. It's awful. It is making law officers in this country are making the mistake of not wanting to be a victim. So they're hesitating. They're getting shot because they don't want to become called a racist or a bigot or something for shooting a person that deserves to be shot. Okay, I don't mind telling it like it is. You go in and you rob somebody, you point a gun at a policeman, then you deserve to be shot. And that's that's just the way it is. So when you see a policeman, I did it today. Go up and shake his hand. I met a wonderful man today, and it's fun. It makes you, like Gary said, it makes you feel so good because you've made them feel good, and you've made them realize that they are worthy in this country. They are needed in this country. We couldn't get along without them, and they do a great job for very few, not very much thanks, and a pittance of pay. A very little pay. I mean, I wouldn't do it. And thank goodness we have these great men and women of our law enforcement agencies who do go out there and protect us. So go up and shake hands with one. Tell him what a great job he's doing, and tell him how appreciative you are of his service.
And then notice how good you feel.
Exactly, like Gary said. Gary did it. Notice how good you feel. You will feel great about it. Make it a habit. Let's do this. Anyway, so let me say, until we meet joyously next Friday, remember we're on every Friday now, let me say this. Heaven's blessings.